I love Game of Thrones. It's such a good show. So I could do a little less without the bro sis, relations. But hey, whatever, man.
Not a fan?
Medieval
Yeah.
times. I guess there weren't a lot of pickings, so choices were limited. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that was pretty accurate historically because they wanted to keep, the throne or reign of the throne in the family. So
yeah, and then you get crazy little bastards like Prince Joffrey, or I guess King Joffrey.
Yep. Well,
still hard to stomach those episodes when you rewatch that series, man. You're like, what a dick.
Please listen carefully.
Hello and welcome to the Film Revere Podcast. This week brought to you by Audible. I'm Zach.
I'm Katie.
Our guest for today's episode is visual effects veteran Dennis Davis. But first, let's get into some industry news. First up, we got HBO streaming all 8 Harry Potter movies. The announcement was made this past Monday, which is exciting because with a free 1-month trial of HBO Now, anyone can have access to these wonderful films. The movies were able to be added to HBO's catalog due to the basic cable rights for exhibiting the film switching hands from Disney to NBC Universal back in 2016. And also another reason why this was made easy was the fact that Warner Brothers and HBO are both owned by Time Warner Cable. Fun fact, collectively, the Harry Potter franchise brought in a massive $7.7 billion in box office ticket sales.
It's a lot of moolah. So when you use 7 billion?
Well, closer to 8, really, at that
Yeah.
point. 7.7. Let's not split hairs here.
When you say you can watch it with the trial, is that like you have to sign up for like a year, or is it just like...
Oh, God, no. Oh,
Okay.
my... Jeez, HBO really locks you in there for a whole year.
I don't know. Like sometimes that happens where it's like, oh, free trial, and then you got to sign up with your credit card.
Sign up with your soul.
Yeah.
Don't mind the blood that you're using to sign this. No. With HBO Now isn't necessarily like HBO straight up, because HBO you can obviously add to your cable package, but they also offer HBO Now for people who don't have cable.
Yeah, who has cable anymore? Nobody.
Dude, not with HBO Now.
Yeah,
I mean,
right?
jeez, what's a Hulu, HBO Now, and Netflix, dude.
I think that's the future. I think it's going to be all streaming services. Like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, that is the fear, right? But I mean, Disney technically has acquired Hulu when they purchased 21st Century Fox, or all the stuff that they got in that deal.
Mm-hmm.
So with them wanting to do their own streaming service, I would likely see Hulu just staying and Disney making that their streaming service and not really changing the name.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, and then my coworker told me the other day that DC is getting their own streaming service.
Oh, God. Well, I mean, they do well on television. I'll give them that. But
True.
As far as their films...
Yeah.
they're,
Well, she was super hyped about Young Justice, the show, so...
all right. Well, and then you got Krypton coming on, which we talked about last week, so...
Yep.
You got all kinds of stuff DC could rock. I don't know. I mean, that's when it starts to get a little bit too much, though, because then everyone has a service, and then it becomes just as expensive as cable. But, I mean, you get to
Right.
pick and choose that way, but still...
Yeah,
If you're someone
there's
like
gonna have to be some more merging, I think, to get it
Yeah.
back to like a similar thing as cable, but you have all different. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I have Amazon Prime just because I order a lot of stuff on Amazon, but a nice bonus to that is you get the Prime exclusive content for television series and also a bunch more stuff to stream. You combine that with Netflix and Hulu and now HBO Now. I mean, you really don't need much more than that.
I'm gonna have to like grow up and maybe start paying for my own because I'm totally just using like my family Netflix and then like my friend's Hulu. So
Yeah, so this is the funny part. So I'm using my mom's Netflix, right? Here I am, a grown man using his mother's Netflix still, but she's mooching off of me for my Amazon Prime. So I
it's
feel
mutual.
like, actually, I don't even feel like that's the case because Amazon Prime is more expensive, or maybe it isn't in the long run if you think about it, because it is like $60 a year, but when you divvy that out across 12 months, it's actually pretty cheap.
yeah.
But anyways, moving on.
Yeah, so Game of Thrones will not be returning until 2019. HBO recently tweeted a couple days ago that the show will return for 6 episodes for the final season in 2019. So there's no date yet, so that could be the end of 2019. You know, they haven't really said, but...
Man, that's pretty savage that they make us wait the entire year of 2019, because I mean that's practically 2 years now.
Yeah, I mean, it is the final season, so I feel like they're going to have some crazy stuff going on, so it might be worth the wait. And they also announced 4 spin-off shows that they're going to be doing that are Game of Thrones, like in the same universe, which is interesting. So that might hold us over, or that might be after the show's over. Who knows? They're actually going to be working with a bunch of different writers for those. They were announced Max Borenstein, which was involved with Kong Skull Island, Jane Goldman, she worked on Kingsman, X-Men First Class, Brian Helgeland, he worked on LA Confidential, and Carly Rae, who was famously known for Mad Men. So they're each tackling a different of these 4 spin-offs, which is interesting.
Oh man, you got some film people and television people in there.
Yeah, it's a mix. It's an interesting mix. It's kind of like Black Mirror, how they have been doing, on the new... Well, they've always done different... Same writers sometimes, but different directors on every episode, so...
Yeah, I mean, yeah, with Black Mirror especially, because they're usually standalone episodes for most part, but...
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see about that. I mean, obviously, there was a big rumor going on towards the end of the latest season of Game of Thrones where they were saying that the last season would actually be... All episodes would be movie length, which... I'm not sure if that's still accurate, so again, not 100% there, but would kind of make sense with the long delay and when it's being released.
Well, yeah, I mean, last season they were pretty long, right?
Sometimes they're like, we'll do an hour, sometimes 2 hours, so...
Yeah, I could see that happening.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I love Game of Thrones. It's such a good show, so I could do a little less without the bro sis, relations, but hey, whatever, man. Medieval times. I guess there weren't a lot of pickings, so choices were limited. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that was pretty accurate historically because they wanted to keep the throne or reign of the throne in the family. So
yeah, and then you get crazy little bastards like Prince Joffrey, or I guess King Joffrey.
Yep. Well,
still hard to stomach those episodes when you rewatch that series, man. You're like, what a dick.
Sure is.
But and moving on to more film-based stuff, Ridley Scott is reportedly in talks to direct a Merlin saga adaptation at Disney. While the deal isn't closed yet, some Variety sources close to the situation believe that this will definitely be Scott's next movie. The film, which is based on T.A. Barron's books, will focus on the origin story of the great wizard Merlin, who would later go on to mentor the legendary King Arthur. Disney's also working on a live-action adaptation of The Sword in the Stone. Scott has also reportedly met with executives at Disney with regards to that film as well. What are your thoughts on all the live-action adaptations Disney's been making so far?
I mean, they've had a variety of, I feel like, successful and not so successful ones. There's ones you really haven't heard of that weren't in theaters long, like... They have done, like, Cinderella and some of the big ones. But then they did have the really successful Beauty and the Beast. So, I don't know. This is a long... Didn't they just do... I feel like they did a King Arthur movie not too long ago.
Well, yeah, but that definitely wasn't in the vein of a Disney film. No, God, no. Because you had Guy Ritchie directing that. So that was more like a Lock, Stock, and King Arthur type thing.
Yeah.
So... Which was still interesting, but...
Yeah. These, I mean, the medieval stories, they're super captivating. There's a reason that, they've been around so long, and a lot of the original Disney films took from, like, the Grimm fairy tales and etc. So, I mean, there's material there. We'll just see how they handle it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see a more grounded Sword in the Stone. I mean, again, King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, I believe was what it was called. It just released recently, starring Charlie Hunnam. Mm-hmm. That was a really fun movie, but again, it was very modern in the way that they told that medieval story. So it'd be cool to see like a more, not necessarily historically accurate, but I guess fantastical version, I guess, or more in line with the original content. So
yeah, they could go a bunch of different ways.
We shall see. What else is in the news, Katie?
We got your girl, Cate Blanchett. She is...
Oh, what? Tell me more. What? I'm listening.
I got your attention. She is going to be the jury president for the Cannes Festival. She's going to preside over the competition for the 71st Festival, which takes place May 8th to the 19th. So that's exciting. She was quoted saying, "I'm humbled by the privilege and responsibility of presiding over this year's jury." She continued, "The festival plays a pivotal role in bringing the world together to celebrate story, that strange and vital endeavor that all people share, understand, and crave." Pretty well spoken. So she said,
well, it's Kate Blanchett, of
yeah,
course
right?
it. This is a
Oscar
perfect
winner.
woman we're talking about here. Should be very interesting. It's a huge privilege, and again, another step in the right direction. You got a super powerful female coming in as a jury president. I dig it.
Yeah. Well, she was, I think she's like the 17th, I read, woman to hold this role. So it,
Dang, so
know.
Kansas not afraid to do that. They're like, psh, this is old school for us, all right? We've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's exciting. Moving on to some other interesting news. Kendrick Lamar is producing and curating the Black Panther soundtrack album. So he's working with Top Dog Entertainment CEO Anthony to produce the soundtrack for the whole movie. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I think that's kind of cool. I mean, he's massive right now, Kendrick Lamar. I mean, no one can, dispute that. But I don't know. That film looks really kind of cool. I'm more shocked at Andy Serkis. I mean, we're getting Andy Serkis as himself as an actor versus behind the face of, a CG character as usual. So that's kind of exciting. But it's just super weird to see Andy Serkis in that film. I mean, anyone who's seen the Black Panther trailers will see Andy Serkis, and I mean, he looks kind of cool. Not gonna lie,
dude. I think the whole film looks amazing, and like, I'm so excited for the cast and like everyone involved. It'll be interesting to see what kind of music Kendrick works with, because they did announce that it will feature the song that he collaborated with Sia, as I say, like SZA, All the Stars. And I listened to that, and it's different than his new album, because his new album is very much him, and it's like not as pop, I would say, and I don't know. So I feel like he's gonna have to be a little bit more pop, and for a movie.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily. I mean,
you don't think like for a soundtrack? I don't know if like his hard like style.
Well, all right, valid. I think it'll translate more when they're in the city versus when they're actually.
Okay.
Where the Black Panther's from. I think that's going to be an interesting, difference in sound. We'll see what happens there.
Yeah, we'll
so
see. I mean, he's definitely capable, and he was chosen for the project by the director, Ryan Coogler. I think that's how you say his name.
It is today.
It is today. It is here right now. That's how you say it. But yeah, it hits theaters February 16th, and the soundtrack is due out on the 9th. So before
February 16th?
Yeah, dude. It's coming up.
I did not freaking, hey, man. I've been watching trailers. I just don't realize, man, Marvel is just killing it right now.
Oh, they are. They got so much going on.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm definitely going to check that one out for sure. So I'm going to have to see 50 Shades Freed and the Black Panther. I got to throw that shameless plug. No, it's February 8th. So
okay.
Luckily we're not competing. No, it's just like that was like one of the first big films I actually got to have my work be on screen on. So, which is hilarious. Everyone's like, dude, you worked on 50 Shades. Like, better believe it.
That's like the opposite of what I'm doing. I'm working on like a preschool show.
Yeah, you're working on a kid's show for the BBC. That's freaking hysterical. God, man. Yeah, I have a very varied resume, we'll say. So yeah. I think it's time to jump into one of my favorite sections of the show, which is trailer drops. The first... Oh, yeah, you got music? Let's do this. All right, I'm going to put you on the spot, Katie.
We need an intro.
All right, this is the intro. This is by Katie Chapman.
Oh, no. Trailer drops. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Oh, my God, man. That's like some old school DJ.
Yeah, throwing it back.
Nice. I like that. Old school. There you go. That is now going to be the official intro for trailer drops, people. So just so you know, if you don't like it, send us your own version of an intro. You know what? Cool. That's interesting. I like this. So we have an inbox us section in our on filmrevered.com. I don't know if you can send files. Maybe hit us up on Twitter or on Facebook. Email? We do have an email. Check out filmrevered@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Drop us any kind of, like intros for the intro section, for what to watch, trailer drops, industry news. If you guys want to do bumpers,
Heck yeah.
I'm totally down to do a different one each week if we can get them, or just use one. I mean,
Yeah, mix
let
it up.
us know. filmrevere@gmail.com. Drop us your bumpers. I'm very interested to hear these. So, but yeah, time for trailer drops. I'm going to start off with A Series of Unfortunate Events Season 2 teaser, which came out right at the beginning of the year. The trailer featured Olaf boasting that Netflix chose him to be the first face seen for 2018 and continue to introduce the trailer whilst wielding a very large knife, if I might add. Little creepy there, but you know, it's Olaf, so tends to be expected. The teaser itself was very quick, as most tend to be, but from what I was able to see, looks quite hilarious and definitely visually interesting, which the series has been known for. They do a mixture of like it's almost like it's meant to look almost as if, I don't know how to explain the way that show looks.
It's meant to look bad. Like
It looks like it's all takes place on a stage sometimes too.
Oh,
like
yeah.
I don't know. I kind of like it though. Like it's an interesting look.
I don't know. I couldn't even get into Did you watch all of the first season?
I watched half of it, so there is that.
I watched like a few episodes and I was just like, I can't keep watching this. I was a huge fan of like, was in movies back in the day. And
yeah, Jim Carrey was the original Olaf.
Yeah. In the books, but it's like I couldn't get into it. I was real excited for it, but it's highly stylized and it looks like you can see the green screen, you can see the CG. I don't know if that's just me, you know, being...
No, obviously it's hard now, definitely now as we've been working in the industry, you definitely are going to pick up on stuff like that. I don't know. I mean, like, there's shows like that. I mean, again, Adult Swim's famous for doing that with some of their shows, like Your Pretty Face is Going to Hell, but that's Adult Swim, not Netflix. So
Right.
there's a big difference in
it's
budget.
Interesting. I don't know if I do check it out, I'll have to finish the first season, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Neil Patrick Harris, who plays Count Olaf, he's super excited about it. In fact, he said, "I'm very excited about this season," in which he plays some, quote, "redonkulous characters with crazy voices." He also went on to say that season 2 is still based as firmly as season 1 was on the books before them, and that's our source material. He also said the following: "I think these middle books allow the Baudelaire kids to take action in a way they weren't able to in the first few. They were kind of static and a bit shell-shocked by the loss of their parents and their constant uprooting and meeting of new people who continue to let them down. But now that they've figured the structure out, these kids can take some more action, and we're going to have a lot of fun." So I'm excited. I'll give it another go. You know, as I usually tend to with some of these. I've done that with some of the Marvel Netflix series because I love me some Daredevil. But after Daredevil, to me, it kind of just went downhill. And Iron Fist, I'm not even going to talk about that. That's practically like episode 1 of Star Wars right there. I don't recognize that one. But I'll give it another go. Series of Unfortunate Events Season 2 will be premiering on Netflix on March 30th. So if you want to check it out with us, go for it. So what other trailer drop?
I got a fun one. It's called End of the Effing World. And
I
it
like
was
that.
What?
I like you chose not to say. We try to be as friendly as we can. I mean, we'll drop a PG-13 up in this, you know. Well, we only get one.
K-I-N-G.
We get one F-bomb, Katie. So if you want to say the title, we get one according to PG-13 standards.
But it came out yesterday, actually. I didn't know it was out so soon. I saw the trailer a couple days ago and didn't pick up on the date. But it actually aired in the UK earlier. And there's already a ton of positive reviews and feedback. Just from the trailer, it's kind of about a boy who... The star is actually Alex Lothar, who's from, if you're a Black Mirror fan, Season 3, Episode 3. He was the protagonist of Shut Up and Dance episode. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a pretty heavy Black Mirror episode. It's true to the series, and I really enjoyed it. And he's a great actor in that. So in this, he plays like a sociopath, teenage boy who doesn't really connect with people. And he's literally like, there's a narrating voice in his head who's like, I want to kill people, basically, and I'm going to plan to kill someone. And then this girl comes up to him and is like kind of rude, but like badass and he's like, I'm gonna kill her. And she's like, I'm attracted to him. So it's kind of like a messed up Bonnie and Clyde. Like they end up leaving the town I think they're in and going on like this crazy road trip. just from the trailer. I haven't actually had a chance to watch it yet. But yeah, it's interesting, and it's actually, there's going to be 8 episodes. There are 8 episodes. They're 20 minutes long, so it's super binge-worthy. You know, like, shows like that you can just go through. And it's under 3 hours of total content.
I didn't realize it was a series.
Yeah, me neither.
I thought it was a film.
When I saw the trailer, I totally thought it was a film.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
It's interesting. It's a series, and there's been talk about season 2. There's no release yet, so you still have time to check out season 1. It's interesting because it was actually based on a comic book. So apparently the series was born when the director, Jonathan Entwistle, I'm so good at names, he glimpsed at a scrap of discarded paper outside a comic book store in London, and which turned out to be a page from this comic, Charles Foreman's comic series called End of the Effing World. That publication was about a 17-year-old self-diagnosed psychopath and a lonely outcast who run away together. So this boy and girl, Bonnie and Clyde team. I think I'm gonna watch this like tonight. Like, it looks good. Like, if I didn't already have something for what to watch, this is my what to watch.
Yeah, hey, you can do it too. I've done that before. So,
okay, all right.
Yeah, there you go.
This is my what to watch.
Pre what to watch. Yeah.
Pre what to watch. I haven't seen it. You probably haven't seen it. Let's watch it together. Like, this looks great.
There you go. I'll tweet about it.
Yeah, and actually, randomly, I saw that the supporting cast includes Gemma Wellen from Game of Thrones. She's Yara in Game of Thrones as a detective investigating the pair. So apparently they get into some trouble.
I would imagine. Again, I don't want to spoil too much of this, but
you can't spoil it. You haven't seen it. I mean, if you see the trailer,
trailer
it does
alone,
look
man.
like a movie. Yeah, I loved it. So let's watch it, guys.
I just love the concept of this kid who's like, I'm gonna pick a person to kill, and the person he ends up picking to kill is like, I'm very conflicted because my young self is very sexually attracted to this person, but I also want to kill someone. I can't make up my mind. It's kind of the inner conflict that I'm picking up in the trailer. So,
and we've talked about that, and he has like a bad family situation. Like, I think they're running away mostly because of how his father treats him, and
man, we're getting into some true crime shit here.
It is. It's coming back. It's coming back.
Always comes back. Yeah. So anyways, another kind of creepy trailer that released, which I'm intrigued by, though I feel like it's kind of late. The game, well, go on and tell people what it is, and then maybe I'll give my opinion.
I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there's a new trailer for Slender Man. There's it's a film, right? Now I'm unsure.
Now is it a series? I guarantee you it's a film because it's by Sony. So I'm pretty sure it's a film.
On Slender Man. And I feel like a lot of us were introduced by him. I kind of heard of it from the video game. How did you hear about Slender Man?
So I went down the deep, dark rabbit hole on Slender Man because I played the game, obviously, and it scared the shit out of me, as it did most people, which is so freaking funny because going back and playing that game now, it's just like, really?
I don't know. It's got that classic element of jump scare, I feel, that will get you no matter what.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I've seen so many people play it at this point that it's more laughable. But
yeah.
It was a good game, but I went down the whole like creepypasta behind it and actually looked into the mythology of it. But I don't know. I mean, it's oh man, are we going down that hole right now?
We're going to some more true crime, I think.
All right, hit me up. Let's you and the listeners and I are gonna go down a weird true crime bit with Slender Man. Go for it, Katie.
All right. So yeah, I'll give you a backstory of Slender Man. It actually was created, like the origins are back to early days of the internet. I guess not too early, 2009.
Back in 2009. It was a good year.
Yeah, well, you think back, it's pretty far away now. But I guess it was created there was a thread and there was a challenge to create like paranormal images, just pretty general. And the creator, Eric Kunstin, he posted
Gotta be careful with that last name. I'm sure he gets into a lot of trouble.
K-N-U-D-S-E-N.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah,
okay.
And he posted he created an image of basically the first Slender Man, which was like a faceless, really skinny suit wearing man with, the white face. So that was the origins of it. And then now we're getting into the true crime. I'm just going to go into it. I'm going to read from the article because it's pretty
Dude, I love this. This is going to be a little segment here. Go for it.
It says, on the evening of May 30th, 2014, 3 12-year-old girls gathering for a sleepover in the small Milwaukee suburb of Waukesha. The next morning, authorities found the 2 girls, Morgan Gesser and Anissa Weiser. Why are people's names so weird? Walking along the highway. They found the 3rd girl in the nearby woods fighting for her life after being stabbed 19 times with a large kitchen knife by these girls. As the retreating pair would later confess to authorities, the attack was an act of ritual sacrifice. They intended to murder their classmate in the name of the Slender Man. They argued in the case, mental insanity. Just
yeah, no shit they did.
Schizophrenia in general, and maybe, like, normal schizophrenia, it's like you see a dark figure telling you things, and maybe them playing this game, they just kind of replaced that with Slenderman. Who knows? But she was also quoted, what's her name? Anissa girl, she said, "I wanted proof that he existed. I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't. I didn't want to find out what would happen if we didn't." She also said that she knew that if she didn't follow through with the attack, Slenderman would, quote, kill her whole family in 3 seconds.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course. That's definitely what happens, people. Just so you know, listeners, that's what happens. Okay. No, I'm kidding.
But miraculously, the girl that they stabbed actually survived.
Dude, man, that's some weird stuff to, like, go on with life in your past with.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and again, just to keep in mind, people, that the actual film that is coming out is not a documentary about this one instance, but there are some kind of influences from, I think, this true crime series in the film. And this is also not to be confused with the documentary that aired on HBO, which was Beware the Slender Man, which is an actual documentary about this instance.
Yeah, if you're interested in this actual story, then you should check out the documentary. I haven't seen it, but looking up after about this film, I found that as well. But it might be inspired by it, and that'll be interesting too, how sensitive they are on that. And I don't know. It's very eerie. If you've seen the trailer, if you're watching it now, it's it's scary. It's not like a stereotypical horror film, I would say. I think it's meant to kind of like freak you out on like a more basic level, which I think is where the origins of Slenderman kind of came from. It's
definitely more paranormal in the sense of the actual film itself. It's less realistic, I think, in that term. But,
yeah. It's interesting. We'll see.
Yeah. I don't know, it's an interesting trailer, obviously. If you guys are, and this is something that I'd like to point out also as we're nearing the end of trailer drops here, is the fact that we are now rolling out the Film Revered podcast onto our YouTube channel, which is just Film Revered, where you guys can check out the podcast on YouTube if that's something that you're into. Moving forward, as we did premiere all of the episodes over the weekend from the past, episode 5 will be more in tune to what we're going to be doing in the future, which is we will be overlaying some video content of what we're talking about as we're talking about it. So it's just another way to enjoy the Film Revere podcast. But I do want to kind of plug that in there because, again, if you're watching this on YouTube, then you'll know that you can see the creepy trailer that we're talking about. So
yeah, definitely. And we have that link dump as well if you want to check out stuff. And there's so many trailers and so much stuff. So send us stuff and let us know what you're excited about and what movies and etc.
Definitely. And another plug for us again, check out at Film Revered on Twitter and let us know what you're watching. Let us know what you're into. Is there a trailer that we missed? You're like, dude, you guys dropped the ball. Talk about it on episode 6. Maybe we will.
For sure.
Maybe. All right, we are going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we have Dennis Davis on the show. Davis is a veteran in the film industry, having worked in visual effects for over 20 years. He is most known for his work on Titanic, Star Wars Episode II, Attack of the Clones, iRobot, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and more recently, Oz the Great and Powerful. Davis is also a teacher with a focus on digital compositing. All right, guys and gals, are you like me and want something more than music to listen to during your morning commute? Maybe you want to start reading more, but don't have the time to sit down and open a book. Well, for people on the go, there's Audible. Audible offers over 180,000 audiobooks to listen to on your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. I personally love listening to a book while I'm in the studio. I get to catch up on my books and be productive at the same time. This week, Audible is giving Film Revere podcast listeners a slamming deal. Go to audibletrial.com/FRpodcast for a free 30-day trial and, more importantly, get a free audiobook on us. Once again, go to audibletrial.com/FRpodcast. Thanks again to Audible for their support, and thank you, listeners. Now, back to the show. Well, welcome to the show, Dennis. I'm super excited to have you here.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I mean, and now a lot of listeners may not know this, but you're actually largely responsible in helping me establish my career, at least most recently, as a visual effects artist. So a big thank you to that.
Oh, you're welcome, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed doing the teaching part. That was great.
So now I would love to start by asking, what made you decide that visual effects was a career for you?
Oh, geez. Well, that goes way long back years and years ago. We won't date myself too much. When I get out of high school, kind of just briefly here, my dad said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I don't have any idea." So I was sitting home watching TV, and a commercial came on the TV, and it said, "You too can become a high-paid broadcast employee. Call 1-800-555-1212. And I did. And
oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And that really led me to a broadcasting school in Dallas, Texas, which is no longer there. But what they did was, it was kind of, I found out, was a crash course, and we gave 3 months worth of training, and you're basically geared towards mostly radio, but basically what it did was it trained you to take the FCC first class radio telephone license, which at that point in time, back in the early 70s, was only way you could really get into the television stations, because all the engineering controlled everything except news. So if you wanted to work as a switcher or, an on-air person as far as directing news or anything like that, it was all controlled by engineering. So in order to get into it, it was good to have the license, and that's how I got started. So how I got into visual effects is I started really interested in editing. Kind of did some engineering work first and really liked the editing part. Years and years ago, there really wasn't any editing devices when I started. It was a machine-to-machine type thing, all mechanical, and really enjoyed that, and it just progressed from there.
Wow. That is awesome. And it's kind of interesting looking back now, especially dealing with the FCC license that you're talking about, because, I mean, here I am right now. We're doing basically a radio show online. I mean, that's what podcasts are. And it's kind of crazy that, you had to go through so many more steps than I did. And, yeah, I'm glad I didn't have to do that. But at the same time, it's really awesome. I mean, I'm sure you learned a lot in doing that as well, too.
Oh, yeah. It was extreme education all the way from, before any editing devices were even invented, and then learning that and then seeing those come along and learning those and just progressing on up to today. So.
Yeah, that is phenomenal. Yeah. And, and it's interesting because realistically, your first feature work was on the Terminator 2 ride film, as far as IMDb is concerned, for Universal Studios, which was T2 3D Battle Across Time. How did you hear about that position, and how did you land that job?
I had worked in the post-production world for a long time after I got out of the TV stations. I went into, post houses, and one in Kansas City, and then, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Kansas City, and then in Denver. And I was an online editor and did editing for about 18 years.
Oh, wow.
So basically what you were doing as an online editor, rolling all the tape machines in sync, you were kind of the master of that, like the conductor, and you'd have a room full of people from the ad agencies and there's a tremendous amount of pressure.
Yeah, I would imagine.
You had to, not only did you have to think about how to do something, you had to also figure out which person in the room is the one you really should listen to, so that type thing. And then after that, having a long time of that, and having even interns trying to tell you what to do or how to do your job,
Oh, God.
it's like, okay, do I really want to do this? And so I got an opportunity. I went to SIGGRAPH that year, and I don't even know what year. It must have been 1995, I guess. And I had applied. Digital Domain had started the year before, I think, and I had applied to them. Of course, never heard anything back, and I didn't even schedule an interview. But I found out when I was in Los Angeles in SIGGRAPH, I found out where they were in a hospitality suite, and I'm just going to go up there. So I went up there, walked into.
Oh my gosh, I love this. I love this.
I walked right into the foyer, and there was a lady taking, people that were being signed for interviews. And I said, "Hi, I'm Dennis Davis. I don't really have a scheduled interview, but I did apply, and here's my resume and reel." And she looked at me, she goes, "Dennis Davis, well, I know that name for some. I think we want to talk to you." And I went,
Oh my gosh.
"Sure, no problem. When do I come back?" And she said, "Come back at 2. So I came back at 2:00 and got an interview with, there was, I think, 3 people in the interview. There was a man that was running the the compositing department, is Price Pethel. He's a brilliant person. And Price asked most of the questions, and he was from a background in television out of Chicago, and knew exactly what I was talking about. As an online editor, you're basically compositing, only at that time we had no idea what that meant, because you had tape machines rolling with the foreground and the mats and all that all in sync. So we were compositing but doing it manually, and he understood, and they gave me the opportunity, called me up and says, "You're hired." And I said, "Cool." So
I love that.
That's how I got from Denver to LA.
Wow. See, there you go. Sometimes you just got to take that extra little initiative and can go a long way. That's awesome.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, and I mean, at that time, obviously the Terminator franchise was quickly becoming an iconic franchise. What was it like working on a Universal Studios project of that magnitude?
It was really awesome. That is still, for me, because it was in 3D, was still the most awesome 3D thing I have seen, even up to today, maybe except to Avatar. But the issue was when the project, if anybody's ever seen it, it was 6 70-millimeter projectors all running in sync. And the way it was presented, where it was a left screen, a center screen, and a right screen, and they're all 3 in stereo. So everything had to be created in stereo by hand, and it was just phenomenal. Working on that and figuring out how to do it and figure out how things were in depth and space back then, when nobody had really ever done anything like this. So I learned a lot. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it's phenomenal. I mean, I guess another question I would have too then would be, obviously you had a great experience working on it. Did you ever go back to Universal Studios after you wrapped and go on this ride or this?
Yes.
This is more of an experience, I guess, than
yes,
a ride.
I did. That was a good time. There was SIGGRAPH in Orlando at one time. I went to SIGGRAPH there, and a bunch of us that had worked on it went over to Universal and watched it, and it was really something to see with the live actors on the stage. Interacting with it. It was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, when I was looking up your resume and everything just to kind of get some ideas for questions, when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I remember, this is around 96, I believe, when it first premiered at Universal Studios. And I remember going to it very close to the time that it opened. It had to have been 97 or 98, so I was a lot younger then. But I remember it actually, the first time I went, it scared the crap out of me. because of all the machine guns. Because if you haven't been on the experience, unfortunately, it is going to be closing. I'm not sure if it's closed yet. I know it's closing soon for a new ride in Orlando. But it was an awesome ride or awesome experience, but you had these massive, Terminators coming out from the sides,
Right.
and they're firing what seems like live rounds, obviously not, but machine guns at each other, and you have this whole experience. And then obviously, you have Robert Patrick's character as the cop coming out into the audience, which is super,
Oh, yeah.
again, with the 3D elements. It scared the crap out of me when I was younger. Obviously, when I went back older, I was like, this is probably my favorite ride. So the fact that you worked on that is awesome.
Yeah, all the gunfire the compositors put in. We did all the muzzle blasts and the lasers.
Oh
and
my
all
gosh.
that. Yeah, and we composited on Infernos at that time, and we used what was called crystal eyes, which was basically a receiver and transmitter. The transmitter sat on top of the monitor, and the receiver was in the goggles. So we wore the goggles and composited actually in 3D live like that. Because if you would move a gunfire in the background like by 1 pixel, it'd come really far to you, or 1 pixel, it would go really behind the gun. So it was a tricky thing to make it actually feel like it was actually in the right space.
That seems very ahead of its time, considering the fact that we're talking about the 90s here.
It was definitely, yeah.
That's so awesome. Yeah, again, the fact that that's like one of your first big, features is so cool to me. I mean, if that, I don't know. I think maybe it's because I have that nostalgic reasoning because I love the ride so much, but still, I think that's awesome. Now, after Universal Studios, you went on to work on the film Chain Reaction. However,
Yes.
something that listeners may not know is you also worked on the short Ghosts, which was produced by Michael Jackson, directed by the legendary Stan Winston, and also, I believe the script was co-written by Stephen King himself. What was it like working on what would later be credited by Guinness Book of World Records as the longest music video in history?
Crazy. It really was. It was, there was a very small team, and I feel extremely fortunate of being associated with that. It was, I don't know, there was probably 16 or 17 of us.
Wow.
One of the awesome things that I remember was Michael came we were Digital Domain in Venice, and we had sound studios and stages and all that, and a mocap stage. Michael came in one weekend and did a capture for mocap capture for his part in some of the shots. And nobody was allowed into that capture, mocap capture, except Michael, the producer, and the technical person running for the mocap. So basically, I was day after there's something walking by one of the sound stages, and mocap cleanup people were kind of out in the open, and happened to look at one of the monitors, and you could see the skeleton, like a mocap skeleton, just the bone structure, everything, walking across the screen. It was the moonwalk, and it was unmistakable Michael. You didn't even have to know who it was. You could see him in the motion and the bone structure, and that was just phenomenal to be part of that. It's awesome.
Ah, that's so awesome. I mean, again, huge Michael Jackson fan. I mean, a lot of people are. Let's not kid ourselves. And even if you say you aren't, you probably secretly are. So, but yeah, that's so awesome. And again, it's like, it's one of those projects I don't feel like a lot of people, obviously when it came out, I believe it released alongside Thinner, which was a Stephen King book that got turned into a movie. And then also went on to be, I think it went to a couple festivals as well. But yeah, it's a really awesome short film or music video, as Guinness Book of World Records would like to call it. But I don't know, it's just one of those like deep cuts, I think, that's like a really cool experience. We'll leave a link to, I'm sure it's online, we'll leave a link so people can see it, or a link to where they can purchase a copy of it, because it is really awesome. So
yeah, it was really experience. And I actually got to meet Michael. He came into the studio and reviewed our work at one point, and went around to each artist's stations, and we got to talk to him, and he looked at our work. So it was really cool.
oh my gosh, I love how you just subtly throw that in. You're like, oh yeah, and then he just happened to look at my work, and that was kind of a nice, that is so awesome. Oh my gosh, that is phenomenal. So following, and it's so great because your career just seemed to just continue to grow here because coming off of this experience with Michael Jackson, shortly after that, you went on to work on the cinematic classic Titanic with the famous James Cameron.
Yes.
At the time you're working on the film, did you have any idea how massive it was going to be?
We did. Everybody heard all the rumors about, that it was how much over budget it was. And it was like, I don't know what it was, the number. It was just tremendously 50 million or something over, whatever. But the people actually working on it, when we would review the dailies or the sections or the sequences, everybody realized that it was really going to be powerful, but nobody outside our people that were working on it, I don't think, realized how massive an impact it was actually going to have.
Yeah, I remember seeing the film when I was younger. I saw it in the very small theater we had. I'm from a town of like 3,500 people called Paw Paw, Michigan. And we had the one theater. And I remember seeing it and I was just like floored. And again, I was younger when I saw it, but even then I was like, my God, like you knew watching that film what a masterpiece it was. Now, James Cameron, who's famous for his meticulous eye for detail, I mean, did you ever have any run-ins with Cameron, or did he ever have any like faux pas, I guess, with like the visual effects team about certain things?
Not any run-ins with him, but James has pretty much a photographic memory, and he never forgets anything. And basically, one story that came by that I shot, that I worked on, which was in the international trailer. It was when the ship was leaving Southampton, starting its voyage across. And we had created digital people for the actual ship they were on as they were up on by the railing and on the deck as they were leaving. And he came by and he would walk, not every day. I mean, he'd come by every 2 or 3 weeks and look at your work and walk by your station or whatever. So he came by and he said, that looks great. He said, I want it more of a sunset sepia tone thing, which is, everybody thought was kind of odd because he really likes the blue casts of things. So I kept moving it toward that and he kept saying, it's great, great. So we finally got approved by the visual effects supervisor, and we showed it to him once in dailies, and he watched it. We're in film, and we couldn't pause anything. It was just on a loop. And he watched it for 3 or 4 minutes, and he finally says, cut. We're not going to use the shot.
Oh, God.
And everybody was like really floored because it actually turned out pretty good. And so, nobody really knew why. So I was at the wrap party, and he was there. We had the wrap party on the Queen Mary. It's unfortunate that the big productions really don't do that much anymore, but it was a lot of fun. We actually, you could book rooms and stay all night, so we stayed all night on the ship. So he was there, and we just happened to standing around and talking with other people, and I turned around and he was standing there by himself, and I went up to him, introduced myself. He says, I know who you are, because he didn't really forget much of anything. And I explained, I said, well, why did you cut my shot?
Oh, my God. Yeah. I love you like, I just met you, and by the way, why'd you cut my shot, huh? Want to get it back to me on that?
He remembered the shot. He knew who I was, and he basically said, there was nothing wrong with the shot. The shot was fine. But when he cut it into the film, because the digital people were so small on the ship, they were so far away, you really couldn't see them anymore. And what it did, it miniaturized the effect. And he said he'd done so much research back in the day when Titanic was built. It was the largest thing a man had ever built to float at that point in time. Mm-hmm. And it lost the massive feel of it when he cut it into the sequence. And he just couldn't do it because it it miniaturized it, and he didn't want it to any shot to be feel like it was a miniature. And I said, "Great answer," and turned around and walked off.
Right? Yeah, as you do in that situation. Well, I mean, that makes sense, I think, from
Yeah.
a director's point of view. You want to make sure that you capture the magnitude of the Titanic, so I can see that. Still, should have used a shot. Come on.
Yeah,
But,
well, it went in the international trailer, so
well, there you go, right? Some people saw it.
yeah.
What were some of the challenges that you and the visual effects team faced on making that film?
The water. Basically trying to create the water itself and getting the actual caustics to look right and the reflections and things like that was the hardest part. Integration because a lot of the ship itself was either miniatures or there were quite a few models. And we had to comp it into the water, and the water team had to actually create simulations of something moving through the water. So the integration from the water, the foam, the spray, everything else, getting the reflections right and all that was probably the hardest thing at that point in time.
Yeah, I would imagine that'd be incredibly difficult. I mean, even now, water is something that can be very tricky. I mean, obviously, more recently, I guess Life of Pi did a really good job with that. And then
Right.
now you have the Aquaman movie coming out soon, so I can only imagine how hard that's going to be because it's going to probably take place mostly in the water. So one can only imagine the hurdles that they're going to have to go over there. So let's see. Shortly after Titanic, you went on to work on yet another massive film, which was Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, which in my opinion, definitely one of the better prequels. What was it like working at the iconic Industrial Light and Magic studio?
Very cool. It was massive. I mean, there was so many people, and at that time it was up in San Rafael, and they had like buildings A through H or something like that. I was in
my
G
gosh.
building, and it was a huge complex. So many different areas, and actually to get to go through the sound stages and the model shops and all that stuff and see that in actual, it was just kind of an awe for me at that point. And then how listening to, they had a pad out back and listening to the explosions go off for shooting for other feature films or even ours. It was cool. It really was.
Man, yeah, I feel like that for most visual effects artists, especially, I feel like ILM is definitely the place that most people want to end up at some point in their career. It's definitely one of those landing points, I think,
Yeah.
just because of how iconic it is and the work that comes out of there. How would you say it differed, I guess, from previous studios that you worked at?
Probably more corporate. They'd been doing it for probably longer than anybody, and it became more of a corporate thing. But that really is not a bad thing. So there is some structure to it, and it really wasn't free flowing. Meaning that a lot of places, we try this and we try that, but they'd been doing it so long that. When you got, like I did some head replacements for Count Dooku, they did a digital head for him, and I put the head on the body when the fight for Yoda, when he was fighting Yoda. And it was like, it just fit. I mean, there was no really messing around other than the work to integrate the collar into the original actor to the head. It just fit, and it just worked. There was not a lot of extra work I had to do because it was already ready for me. And that I think sets them apart from a lot of other studios.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, because obviously working, in visual effects, you get a lot of issues with, different departments messing up something or something not, transferring over properly into the next department. So obviously, like you had mentioned, they've been doing this for a very long time. They know what they're doing, but that is pretty cool, though, that everything seems to work. Like there's a really good unison between teams and that everything kind of has its place. That's awesome. What was something that you enjoyed most about working on Attack of the Clones?
I liked actually, I liked the arena shots and stuff I worked on. Worked a lot on the arena thing and putting in the depth where the fog or the dust and putting in the lasers and the lightsabers and just combining it all together. It was really, really cool to do that. I enjoyed the creature work and everything the shots I had. It was just a lot of it was a lot of fun compositing it. It really, in some composites, when you do some shows or something, they feel really like it's a grudge or something to get to work on it. You really don't want to, but this was just so much fun.
That is awesome. I can't, again, ILM's a place that a lot of VFX artists want to work at. And chief among the reasons for that is I think most people want to work on a Star Wars film. I mean, even the new ones are doing great now. And it's just like, I would love to work on a Star Wars film. The fact that you've worked on one is absolutely awesome. I guess the next question, the question I guess would be, are you even a Star Wars fan, Dennis?
Yes, I am a Star Wars fan. I have several Yodas and things like that. That one of them's even you put batteries in it, and you can tell it to dance, and it'll dance for you. So yes,
that is awesome.
Yeah.
So you're a fan of Star Wars. So then I guess another question would be: have you seen the latest Star Wars films that come out? And if you have, what are your opinions on them?
Oh, I hate to say no, I haven't seen the last one.
Okay.
The one before the one that just came out, the one before that, I liked it. I just felt it was a little disconnected from the originals. Of course, I grew up with the originals. I saw the first one when it opened. It was 1977, I believe.
Yeah.
I saw that one, and I'm still very partial to the first three. And the film. I still like the way it looks on film versus digital, and it's just me, but growing up with that, so.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I mean, Rogue One was it is technically a departure in the sense that it is one of the spin-off series that they're kind of doing where, they do an episodic film, then they do more of a spin-off, and then an episodic. What were your thoughts? Did you see Force Awakens?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh, you gotta see Force Awakens because those are the episodics. So I would be more interested in that. I mean, obviously Force Awakens had a lot of everyone loves Force Awakens for the most part, but the criticism was that it was very much like A New Hope or Episode 4. So I think you probably would actually enjoy that film a lot, being such a fan of the originals.
I need to go see that. I just haven't done it yet. So
yeah. Well, after Attack of the Clones, your career pretty much only continued to grow. I mean, audience would go on to see your work in such films as iRobot, Aeon Flux, The Ant Bully, Alice in Wonderland, Green Lantern, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and most recently, Oz the Great and Powerful. Yet after a long and successful career in visual effects, you began to shift your focus on teaching the next generation of visual effects artists. What prompted you to shift your focus towards teaching?
I've always enjoyed that. There are some people out there in the industry that really don't want to share with others because they think that they will lose a promotion, they'll lose status, whatever. I've never been that way. I've always wanted to share my knowledge with anybody and everybody that wanted it or asked. It never bothered me. And so that, and also what happened was because of a lot of the visual effects work has left the United States, going to other countries and things, I basically really not a lot of work here. And I wanted to, share my knowledge. And it was a natural progression into that. To be able to do that. And also, I really don't want to mention, unfortunately, getting a little older, it's a little harder to do the long hours and things and do the recovery. So the teaching was still to stay in the industry, and I liked it, and being part of the industry. And also like to see when somebody actually understands or gets something, I love to see the light bulbs come on in their head and go, oh, yeah, that's how that works. So I like that part.
Yeah, I think that definitely is what made you such a phenomenal teacher. And again, for the listeners, I mean, that's how Dennis and I met. He was one of my teachers at my first job. They had a 3-month training program before he went onto the studio floor, and he was my instructor. So that's how we met. But yeah, I do think, I mean, obviously from personal experience, that you were a great teacher. And
Thanks.
it's interesting hearing you say that because it definitely came through with your teaching style. I guess something like more at the beginning of when you started teaching, was it initially hard teaching artists versus doing the work yourself?
Not really. I actually learned from the students. They, so you get to a point where you think one way, or well, I've always done it this way, or this is how you do it. And then you'll have a student or somebody or several students come up with a different way to do something. And it's like, oh, well, that's pretty cool. So I like that too. I think that was good. I think it helped me be a better artist. And I like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no problem with that at all.
Very cool. Yeah. Now, I know this, but the listeners may not. But did you have any fun traditions that carried over from class to class?
Yeah, I had two really. That one of them, I guess, was probably the best one. Was got to the students to go out and shoot a still, no matter what it was. And then what I did was I went to basically a thrift store and found a lot of heroes like Spider-Man, Batman, things like that, just small toys, still images that people would play with and discard it or whatever. And I'd clean them up, and then I would set up when this first class first started, and I have everybody pick a hero, and then I have that people comp that hero into the shot. And it was a still, but it still gave you you could use depth of field, you use the lighting, you had to work on lighting, you had to light your hero so it matched what you shot. So I really enjoyed that, and I hope the students enjoyed that, or at least started understanding light direction, shadows, composition, color, and everything goes into compositing. The other thing was I basically had to have some fun. Some of the classes were like, no, whatever. So I went to the thrift store again, and I found this wooden cat, and I named it Comp Cat. And basically we used Comp Cat, and I kind of passed Comp Cat around to the person that I felt like did a really good job that week or that day, or the one that turned in their shot faster than anybody else. It was well done. So that was kind of fun. Those two things I think are most memorable for me. I don't know about you, but
Cool. And I think this is an interesting point too, because as a student, I can tell you, at least my personal experience, like I still have my hero figure, which was Woody from Toy Story. Like I still have him. And yeah. So, and it is kind of a nostalgic thing. It's like this again, when I first met you was my first job in the industry. So it's a big moment for me. And to have like an action figure to kind of like symbolize this was my first job is kind of cool. And so I do plan on taking, I think a lot of artists have their little trinkets that they take with them from studio to studio for their desk. And Woody definitely will keep following me.
Cool. Well, great. Yeah. I'm glad to hear that.
So, and I loved the Comp Cat personally. It was one of those things where it's like, I wanted it bad. Like, I'm like, what do I got to do to get this Comp Cat? And it was such a cool little wooden cat. He had like a little wharf stash going on. And it looked like he had like a little mustache. He was a cool guy. But I think it was also like I guess it was a way of, obviously you're really good at, conveying like a appreciation for artist work, right? Whether you get the Comp Cat or not, you realize, when you've gotten your approval or that you feel like something was really good. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to have the Comp Cat. But when you got the Comp Cat, it was kind of nice to just have it sitting on your desk like, I did something cool that he thought was cool. So, I don't know.
Very cool. Very good. It was a lot of fun, I thought. So.
I liked it. So I guess lastly, looking back at your career here, and obviously I know that you're still active, but at least what we've talked about here in the interview, what did you enjoy most? Was it teaching artists, or was it working in the industry, or did you kind of enjoy them both equally?
I think both equally. Like I said, it's the long hours that is required in our business is kind of getting to the point that I can't really do that too much anymore. You just can't recover from it, but I still enjoy it. I love creating something in puzzles. I guess to be a compositor, you really have to be good at a puzzle or problem solving. How do I put these two things together and make this work? I enjoy that. And that's kind of with the teaching too. It says, well, how do I convey this problem to somebody so they understand it and can actually do the job or recreate, take the problem and solve it. And I think they kind of both go hand in hand, so I enjoyed them both equally.
Yeah, and especially as a teacher, like, I mean, I can kind of speak on this because I kind of helped you out with the tutorial, at least just in reviewing a tutorial you're working on for a totally different department to kind of introduce them into what Nuke is and just seeing how much you genuinely care about, like, look, I want to make sure they understand this. And it's not just from like a job standpoint. It's like you can tell that you genuinely care, that you want to make sure that they know everything they need to know and that it's coming across. I think that made you a great teacher.
Well, thanks. So. Yeah, again, I appreciate that. Yeah, tried really hard to do that. So.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for deciding to join me on the show. And obviously, I wish you the best of luck moving forward in your career.
Looking forward to whatever comes up next. I got some maybe online teaching opportunities coming up and things like that. Just see where it takes me right now. So
that would be great. Yeah, I would be interested. And let us know, obviously, if you do decide to go down that path. We'd love to share it out on our social media accounts. I think that people could benefit from that for sure. So... All right. Well, please stay in touch, of course. And, you know, if I'm ever in Albuquerque, I'll have to hit you up for a game of pool and a beer. So
we can certainly do that. There's some great places for that here.
All right. I might hold you to it. So, well, anyways, thanks again for being on the show and have a great rest of the week, man.
All right. Welcome back, Zach, from the interview.
Thank you.
We're going to get into what to watch, guys. We're going to tell you our top things, what we've been watching, and what we think you should check out. So for me, it's a show that I've been checking out on Netflix called The Good Place. The protagonist is Kristen Bell, and she plays a woman who, it's kind of hard to explain. It's kind of related to, like, heaven. Like, she wakes up, and she's dead, and she's in a place called The Good Place, and there's a guy kind of running the show, and it's this neighborhood, but you find out in the first episode, so spoilers for the first episode if you're just going to check it out, but she finds out that she's not supposed to be there. There was a mistake. She's actually a bad person, and they like...
She's not so good.
No, she's not so good. So she turns up there, and she's kind of messing up the universe that she's in, and she's trying to figure out how to deal with that, and... When you come into The Good Place, you get, like, a soulmate who's supposed to be with you, and he is actually a good person, and he's, like, a freaking ethics teacher, and so he's trying to, like, teach her how to be a good person and, like, you know, stay in the good place.
Good God. Can you okay, again, this is mirroring heaven, right? Can you imagine, like, you die, you're like, man, that sucks, I died, but at least I get to spend eternity in the good place, and then you're paired up with this horrible person that's not even supposed to be there, and you're like, so what, my eternity is, like, making this person a better person? Aww. Like, this is not what I signed up for.
You find out that she's not such a bad person, maybe, you know? So, and it's like, who's to judge what went on in her past life? I don't know. There's a lot of ethical questions. Ethics. But it's really funny. It's a comedy, first of all, so it's not like Black Mirror style or anything. But it's a comedy. It was actually created by Michael Herbert Shore, who's the co-creator of Parks and Rec and also Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So,
oh, geez.
Yeah, two
Big
other
hitter.
super successful comedies. And the humor is, I didn't really, like, when I read that, I didn't really connect that to the humor that's in this show because it's kind of unique. It reminds me of the comedy in Santa Clarita Diet, if you've seen that on Netflix.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
With Drew Barrymore.
Yeah, the zombie parody, yeah. and it's also very binge worthy. It's 20-minute episodes. I made it in a day, pretty much through the first season.
Dang.
So yeah, I'm on the last one, and apparently it's a really good episode. I haven't finished it, but if you're gonna watch it, watch season 2 with me, because season 2 is not on Netflix yet. It's actually ongoing, so I'll have to find a way to watch that.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, if you have Hulu, or in the event that you want to watch it live as it airs, The Good Place does air on Thursdays at 8:30, 7:30 Central on NBC.
Okay.
So you can also, if you catch up over the weekend, you're like caught up, ready to roll, and maybe you can catch up on season 2 that way too. So
yeah, watch it live. That'd be cool.
But yeah, it definitely sounds like an interesting, show, and I love Ted Danson, who also is in that. And I'm pretty sure he plays the guy who's like in charge of everything. So
he does, yeah.
He's hysterical. Like he's very underrated, I think, in his later years. A lot of people just remember him from Cheers. But I mean, he was hilarious in the HBO series Bored to Death. So it's another good series. That would be my second one to watch, I guess. But yeah, so I'm going to check it out. My what to watch is going to be kind of an old series. I mean, it's already done its thing, although they did do a movie for the show this past year in 2017, right at the end of the year, which is Psych, the series. It was a widely popular series when it was airing, and if you haven't caught it yet, I really want everyone to check this out. It's on Amazon Prime right now for free. If you have Amazon Prime, they have all 8 seasons. It's a hilarious show. The show... It's about Sean Spencer, who is a man who is hyper observant and is then hired by the police after he cons them into thinking that he's a psychic with special psychic powers, and it helps him solve crimes. He also has the assistance of his reluctant best friend, who's a pharmaceutical rep, and his name is Gus, and the duo take on a series of complicated cases for the Santa Barbara Police Department. I don't know. I mean, it's a really freaking hilarious show. They have a lot of great one-liners, some really awesome 80s reference, if that's something you're into. And honestly, it's got a really good high replay value. I mean, I'm actually rewatching the series right now that it's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
but
it's a great classic comedy. It's kind of funny hearing you describe it as if it's a new show. But I mean, a lot of people, I guess, haven't seen it. I haven't seen it all the way through, so I might watch it again.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because like the first couple of seasons, it was very much like a episode of the week kind of deal. You didn't have to see every single episode, but moving forward, they went into more of an overall arc with some of their shows. But again, it was still procedural in the sense that it's a new case every episode. But I will admit that the first episodes may come off as a little over the top or cheesy, but once you settle into the world of Psych, I do feel like you're going to find that it's very enjoyable. But you really got to sit there and at least watch a couple episodes. Another fun fact about this, too, though, was when the series originally aired, which was from 2006 to 2014, it was, at the time, the longest-running show on the USA Network.
Oh, wow. How many seasons did it have?
8 seasons.
Nice.
So, and it's interesting because it was a comedy. I mean, USA had a lot of really great shows. Again, one of your favorite shows, which is Mr. Robot, which is definitely not a comedy.
Definitely not.
But yeah, it's just kind of interesting. They had a really good run. And again, USA still loves them. And the Psychos, which is what they call Psych fans, are still huge fans. I mean, they just literally did a Psych movie that aired in December of last year. So, but yeah, anyway, so that's what to watch.
I have one more that I haven't watched yet.
Oh, what? You're going to drop another one right now?
Well, can you guess? I mean, come on. Like, just yesterday, some new episodes of Steven Universe came out. So I couldn't leave that out. Like, I haven't seen it yet. I'm trying to avoid Tumblr, avoid everything to avoid spoilers. I saw one spoiler, which is unfortunate. But, come on, guys. You got to see the new episodes. Like, Rebecca Sugar and, like, everyone's been posting about them, that they're really great. It's, like, a wrap-up to the, like, Lars being in space story. So, I'm super excited to see those. Probably going to watch them right after this.
All right, you know what? Fine. Yeah, I'll let it slide.
Okay,
because, again, we talked about this in last week's episode where you kind of focus heavily on piracy. That show gets hit hard. So if you're going to watch this show, because she's letting you know there's new episodes, do the right thing. Watch it legally, all right? Don't pirate the shows.
You can watch it on the Cartoon Network app if you have cable, which is unfortunate for a lot of us millennials. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, there's other ways to find it, too. So.
Well, you can get it on Amazon, I'm sure. So.
Yeah, probably.
Like I said before, and I'll continue to say, is put your money as a support Support your shows with your money. And again, I know that's tough for some people. Obviously, we hit some hard times in everyone's life. But if you really like a show, show some support and actually, either watch it through cable. But if you don't have cable, then put some money down and watch it on Amazon. So, well, that's the end of episode 5 of Film Revere Podcast. Be sure to show your support for the FR podcast by leaving a review on iTunes, Google Play Music, or wherever you happen to listen to the show. Another great way to show your support is by getting a free audiobook from Audible by going to audibletrial.com/FRpodcast. If you enjoy the show and would like to ask a question for the podcast, feel free to write us at filmrevered@gmail.com. Lastly, we have award-winning film and television composer Ann Nikitin on the show next episode. More info to come later this week. Thanks again from all of us here at Film Revered. Have a great week.